teachers, have you ever seen a bad teacher get karma? I've been a teacher for over a decade, and I've met some incredible educators, the kind who go the extra mile, care about their students, and inspire them to be their best. And then, there was Ms. Andrews. She was, without a doubt, one of the worst teachers I have ever worked with. Lazy. Mean. Power-hungry. Completely disinterested in teaching and only there for the paycheck. And she thought she was untouchable. She treated students horribly, manipulated the administration, and somehow always got away with it. Until she didn't. The many sins of Ms. Andrews. To understand how satisfying her downfall was, let me explain just how awful she was. 1. She gave out grades based on who she liked. Ms. Andrews didn't grade based on effort, ability, or even logic. If a student was quiet and well-behaved, she ignored them. If a student stood up for themselves or asked too many questions, she'd fail them. If a student was a troublemaker but flattered her, suddenly they were getting A's. One time, a straight-A student failed her class because he corrected her in front of the class when she got a historical fact wrong. Her response? Well, if you think you're so smart, why don't you teach the class? Then she sat at her desk and refused to teach for the rest of the period. 2. She loved to humiliate students. Ms. Andrews had a sadistic streak. She loved embarrassing students for no reason. If someone got a question wrong, she wouldn't just correct them, she'd mock them. Wow, did you even study? That's third-grade knowledge. Are you sure you're in the right class? You'll never make it in college if you can't even get this right. She once made a student cry in front of the whole class because they mispronounced a word while reading aloud. Instead of moving on, she made them repeat it 5 times while the class sat in uncomfortable silence. 3. She bullied new teachers. She was just as bad to fellow teachers. She stole lesson plans from new teachers, then criticized them for being unprepared. She spread rumors about a young teacher fresh out of college to make her look incompetent. If a teacher tried to report her, somehow the complaint always disappeared. She had been at the school for 20+ years, had connections in administration, and knew how to play the system. For years, nothing happened. Until one year, she finally pushed too far. The beginning of the end. The final straw came when she publicly humiliated the wrong student. This student, let's call her Emily, was the daughter of a school board member. But here's the thing, Ms. Andrews didn't know that. One day, Emily was struggling with an assignment, and instead of helping her, Ms. Andrews ripped her paper in half and said, "If this is your best work, you should drop out now." In front of the entire class. Emily went home devastated and told her father. And that's when karma finally arrived. The investigation that took her down. Emily's father filed a formal complaint against Ms. Andrews. But this time, it didn't disappear. Because he was on the school board, he had the power to demand an investigation. The school started digging through years of complaints. And guess what? There were dozens. Students who had been unfairly graded. Students who had been bullied by her. New teachers who had been mistreated. Parents who had complained for years but were ignored. Everything started piling up. Then, the final blow came, a group of students started recording her. The smoking gun, secret recordings. Some seniors, who had dealt with her for years, decided to expose her. They recorded her mocking students, refusing to teach, and even bragging about how the principal couldn't touch her. They sent the recordings to the school board. And once the evidence was out, the administration had no choice but to act. The glorious karma. At first, she tried to fight it. She pulled every excuse in the book. The students are lying. Nope, multiple recordings. I've been here for years, I deserve respect. That's not how this works. I was just joking, they're too sensitive. Joking doesn't involve failing kids on purpose. But none of it worked. Because this time, she wasn't just facing angry students. She was facing the school board, parents, and teachers who had been waiting for this moment for years. she was forced to resign before she could be fired. She lost her pension benefits. She tried to get another teaching job in the district. No one would hire her. She went from being untouchable to blacklisted. After she left, the entire school felt lighter. Students actually started enjoying class again. New teachers felt safe to do their jobs. Grades went up because students weren't failing for no reason. No one missed her. And the best part? One of the teachers she used to bully took over her position. She made the class 10x better and earned the students' respect almost immediately. Ms. Andrews spent years abusing her position, thinking she was too powerful to ever be held accountable. But in the end, all it took was one bad decision, one wrong student, and a little bit of karma. And honestly, she got exactly what she deserved. Update: the bad teacher who finally got what she deserved. Since then, a lot has happened, and I got some interesting updates about her life after she was forced to resign. Turns out, her downfall didn't stop at just losing her job. Life after the fall. After Ms. Andrews was forced to resign, she didn't take it well. At first, she tried to save face, telling people that she had left on her own terms and was ready to retire anyway. Except, she wasn't actually eligible for full retirement benefits yet. Why? Because in all her arrogance, she had assumed she'd be at the school forever and had never planned for what she would do if she had to leave before she was ready. Suddenly, she needed a new job. And that's where things got interesting. Blacklisted and desperate, Ms. Andrews tried applying to other schools. And guess what? No one wanted her. The local school district refused to hire her because of her reputation. Private schools? Not a chance. Word had already spread. She even applied to be a substitute teacher, but she was denied because of the complaints and the official reason for her resignation. At this point, she was panicking. She had burned every bridge, thinking she'd never need to leave. But now, she had no way to get back into education. So, what did she do? She tried to blame everyone else. The blame game. Instead of accepting responsibility, she started telling everyone that she was the victim. She blamed the students. They ganged up on me. Kids these days are too soft. She blamed the parents. They think their precious little angels can do no wrong. She even blamed the school board. They used me as a scapegoat. She even tried reaching out to former coworkers, the same ones she had bullied for years, hoping they would speak on her behalf. But, no one had her back. Not a single person. She had spent years mistreating students, staff, and parents, and now that she was in trouble, no one was willing to help her. After months of failed job applications, she tried something ridiculous. She decided to start her own tutoring business. Yes. Ms. Andrews, who had failed students on purpose, mocked kids for struggling, and barely taught, wanted parents to pay her to tutor their children. And how did that go? It was a disaster. No one hired her. Parents already knew her reputation. She tried offering cheap rates, but it didn't matter. People would rather pay more for a tutor who wasn't awful. She even tried advertising online, but the comments were brutal. Former students started warning people not to trust her. She lasted maybe 3 months before she gave up. The final embarrassment. After failing to get back into teaching, Ms. Andrews had no choice but to take whatever job she could find. And what did she end up doing? She got a job as a receptionist at a small office. And here's the best part, one of her former students worked there. One day, a student she had humiliated in class walked in, as her new coworker. According to what I heard, she turned bright red and avoided eye contact the entire time. Imagine spending years acting like you were better than everyone, only to end up answering phones at the front desk while one of the kids you used to bully is doing better than you. That's some A+ karma. How the school is doing now. Now, let's talk about the real winners in this situation, the students and staff. Ever since Ms. Andrews was removed, the school has been so much better. Grades improved because kids weren't being unfairly punished. Students felt comfortable asking questions without fear of being mocked. New teachers actually stayed because they weren't being sabotaged. Even the principal, who used to cover for her, eventually left. He retired early after complaints piled up against him too. And the best part? The teacher who took over her position is amazing. Students actually love the class now. Parents no longer have to fight for their kids to be treated fairly. It's a complete turnaround. Ms. Andrews spent years believing she was untouchable, treating people like garbage, and thinking she'd never face consequences. But in the end, she lost everything because of her own actions. She thought she could bully students, intimidate staff, and manipulate the system forever. But karma doesn't forget. And when it finally caught up to her, it made sure she felt every bit of it.